Good morning, Mr. Macfarland.
Good
How are
morning.
you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. So today on the School Podcast, we brought you here because you're the superintendent, right?
Assistant Superintendent for Learning Network 12. You got it?
Yes. Assistant Superintendent, number 12. Whew, that's a big title.
Yes. For school performance, by the way. So make sure you get your keystones up and all that stuff, because my job title depends on it. I appreciate you.
So how did you get into that field? Because that's a lot.
It is a lot. It's about a little over 20 years in the making. I left college, went into finance, thought I wanted to make a ton of money and that sort of thing. I had a loss in my personal life, in my family. And it was just like a record scratching, like, what's really important here? I went back into education, found my passion retapped into my passion for what I wanted to do long term. And 20 years later, after teaching, going to assistant principal, working in a couple different districts, being a principal in the Northwest, up at Parkway Northwest in Philly. And then this summer was promoted to the assistant superintendent role. So it's been a journey, but an amazing one.
So you said that you went to college for finance, right?
I majored in history and minored in finance. If I'm honest, what happened was two things. My sister, who ended up passing away years later, was diagnosed with cancer. I was like, oh my gosh, time is short. I got to make a ton of money right now. So then I got a minor in finance. And then I also saw a lot of friends and folks from William & Mary, where I went to school, were getting jobs. I was like, that amount sounds good to me. So I went down that path, and I worked in investment banking for about 5 years in Richmond, Virginia, and Atlanta, Georgia. And at that point, my sister had ended up passing away just after the first. I can remember it vividly because it's Super Bowl week. The first Patriots victory over the Rams back in the day. I remember talking to her after the game. It was a huge upset at that time, and then that was one of the last conversations I had with her. So it was she inspires me every day to be my best and stay true to my passion.
Was she older or younger?
She was older.
She was older?
Yeah, so she was 29 at the time, and this is going on about, so she died approximately 24 years ago. So, but that really guided kind of my focus on doing what's right for me as a person, and what's true to my soul and my heart, and that has never guided me wrong. There's been challenges, bumps, bruises along the way, but that's kind of what's steered me towards doing what I think is right, and it's been an amazing journey.
So you say you went to college. What college did you go to?
So I went to College of William and Mary, which is down in Williamsburg, Virginia. I was rejected for my first choice. They said, "Yeah, you need a no." I was just talking about I got waitlisted from Duke down in Durham, where you may end up heading if that's the way the fates align in that area of the country. And I got into William and Mary, and it was the right choice. It was an amazing experience. There's no such thing as a perfect college, and you make your experience, and it was an awesome one for me.
So you said you got rejected.
Yes.
Not to talk about, not to make this negative, but
no, it's real.
I'm forever telling our students that you aren't as polished as you're going to be later, which is what brings us to today. So rejected, why, if you can share?
I would say my dream school was Dartmouth.
Okay.
I really wanted to go to Dartmouth in New Hampshire. Great school, smaller for Ivy League school, but really, really competitive. And at that point in time, I identified wherever I got into a lot of external factors. Like if I need to get into this school, I need to have these SAT scores, I need to do this, that, and the third. And if I don't, like that's a hit to who I am and that sort of thing. So point blank, it was so competitive. My SAT scores were strong, but not strong enough. So you're competing with everybody who's doing the school president thing, the athletics, the team captains, and the grades, the AP courses, and the SAT scores, and the entire package wasn't competitive enough. And they said, thanks, but no thanks. And at the time, it really hit me to my core, like my identity, like, oh my God, that means I must be like less than. And it was one of the first time you open the paper, it's like, no, okay, I guess that's a wrap. And so it's that the message I would have is that for the long term that was not the worst thing that happened to me, because you start to define that probably was the starting point of being like, okay, let's seek to go more internal versus external. Where are you at? Who are you, and what's important to you? Because somebody just said you weren't good enough, and that didn't feel too good. So let's really focus on what's important to you and do things right for your own reasons.
You said that you went to college for history, or is your major, and finance is your minor. But then you said you was a teacher.
No.
You said no?
I was not a teacher.
Oh, I thought you said that.
So that was my passion. But I majored in history, but I did not get the certification to be a teacher. So when I literally moved home from Richmond, Virginia, and you just have chances to really have mentors in your life that you don't anticipate are going to be the strongest mentors, or you don't anticipate it's going to go in a certain direction. So my boss at the time, I worked for a really small venture capital fund in Virginia. And he saw that I was really struggling after my sister passed. And he's like, we're just going to talk. We're going to go out to dinner. We're going to hang out and just not talk about work. Just where are you at? And he said to me, he's like, this isn't forever. Like, this isn't, I can tell you're struggling. If you need to make a decision that's right for you, do it. Don't be afraid to. And so at that point, about a month later, I decided to move home, go back into as a, probably 25, 26-year-old post-college kid, young man at this point in time. I moved into my old bedroom, got my teaching cert. I lived up in Glenside, just outside of the Northwest, up in Glenside. I got my teaching cert at Arcadia, which is right down the road. I worked as the building sub and in-school suspension coordinator at Cheltenham. And after a year, I walked out of that with my teaching cert, having done my student teaching. I was like, you know what? I really loved just the interactions of being with teachers and getting to know students and just having the conversations. Essentially, I'm spending a day, sometimes two days with folks who've gotten into trouble and just talking through like, what happened? Why? How do we move through this? And I found it really fascinating, interesting, and something that as I went into it, I think this could be part of my passion. I found that it was.
In one or two of those instances, what did you find that the kind of a common denominator was for those students that were quote unquote in trouble? We know that a lot of times they have a lot of talent, highly intelligent, just don't know how to actually, for one, it may not be cool to them to actually step into that sometimes. But what were some of the common themes that you saw with some of those conversations with those students that needed a different type of attention than maybe, some of the other ones?
Yeah. At that point in time, it was kind of early, and just the first thing was just I really loved being around and building relationships with students, just understanding their background, understanding their story, who they were, what they were trying to be, and that sort of thing. And I think that visibility and just authenticity, that's the core of what any great educator is about. Like, no matter what you're bringing into my classroom, into my school, into my office, it's like, I'm going to meet you where you are. I'm going to show you the respect you deserve, and let's talk. How can I support you? Deeper themes that I probably didn't know was emerging at the time, but looking back, I think there's some truth to this. One would be something I go back to a lot, that it's hard for students to see the path for what's really keeping on the straight and narrow for my self-respect when I'm dealing with disrespect. When I'm feeling that somebody's coming at me, a colleague, a friend, a student, how do I maintain my path and have the power to do so, and not let the control go to somebody else who's messing with me? Basically, there's some sort of beef going on. Sometimes the hardest thing is when that disrespect, especially for a high school student, may be coming from an adult. And how do I respond to that effectively while standing up for myself? Going into that first year of working with kids, I probably wouldn't have been able to verbalize that, but that was real. The other thing is that I'm starting to see even more now is, who's your audience? Who's your audience? Like, who are you? What are the habits that you've developed, and how is that because of people in the class, friends, teachers, reputation? Like, how do your actions match who your audience is intended to be? And if it's not effective, it's not helping you, then how do you switch that? How do you get your habits in alignment with, like, who am I and where do I want to go? Because these habits aren't helping, and that's only magnified more now when I laugh. I started a LN12 Philly Instagram. Follow it. Make sure I have about 110 followers.
Okay.
But I say that because, like, students probably have thousands of followers, and so you're in moments where you're thinking about what are the impact of my actions for the thousands of people that potentially follow me versus the one or two people that could really help push, challenge, and mentor me. And how do I kind of balance what's the best audience that can help and support and challenge and push me and have my back, like, all the time, not just like it when something's funny on Instagram.
I think it's difficult to be able to get them to realize that you want quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that at 18 or 17 years old, you really know 5,000 people. It's possible, but do you really know 5,000 people personally that you want to allow into your personal life or whatever it is you want to portray? So I think it's getting them to realize you don't necessarily need the numbers. As you just said, you need the quality of the people that are really going to, be in your corner and help you out when you're trying to do something positive.
Mm-hmm.
Hold you accountable when maybe you made a wrong decision, but know that it's not the end of the world. So I agree with that. Abeni?
Like, how does somebody get into their worker field? That, like, did you choose the job? Did the job choose you? Like, how did you get into that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I ended up going back and teaching at Springfield Township High School, which is just outside the city, right on 309 and up in the Northwest, just over in the burbs, basically. That's where I went to school. So I taught there for 7 or 8 years, social studies, coached, was a advisor in different activities. I was just like, I was in anything in the life of the school. I was younger, probably had more energy, definitely less gray hair, and I loved it. And I just found myself thinking, like, okay, good teaching is like, what are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing next week to really make sure that the learning targets, like, that kids are getting it, they're engaged, the class discussions are lively. And I found myself thinking, like, okay, I'm building this program. What does this look like next year and 2 years out? And it was just kind of a mindset for that's what I found myself thinking. And so I started to get into school administration because it was like, those are the moves that I wanted to make, because the relationships with kids is the here and now, which is amazing. And it's crucial day to day. But then there's the programming piece that's like year over year. If you don't have the programs to match student interests that they want to engage in, then it's harder to help them succeed, help them to see their path as they move. So then I went into, I was an assistant principal up at a district called Exeter Township outside of Reading in Berks County, which is, we can talk a little bit about. I used to say that it was a district that had about 10% to 15% of students coming in from the side of the district that was right next to Reading, which was about 5% African American, about 10% Hispanic. And then you also had Berks County, which is a historical white county to be direct, and it has a traditional approach. Let's put it that way, where they want to maintain the American status quo, predominantly white. So it really made for an interesting mix of students coming in with a kind of a right-wing philosophy in some cases. They were dealing with more diversity, African American, Black, Hispanic students coming into the school. And how do you always put students front and center? Because it didn't always happen. So that was fascinating. And then as I wanted to move into the principalship, I interviewed for a couple of positions up in Berks County, and the job at Parkway Northwest High School for Peace and Social Justice opened up. And my former principal, who was the mayor's head of education for a number of years, Mr. Otis Hackney, texted him. I said, "What do you think about this position?" He's like, "It'll be good for you. Go for it. You can handle it." So I applied, and it worked out. And it was both a personal and professional important move in my life. It really impacted me and still impacts me, especially in my new position. Is like, how do I help to see my experience, the experiences of principals in the district and the district overall? How do I help support them best in my new role as assistant superintendent for 14 schools? So that's kind of the quick journey and how it's gone.
What are what's one of the positive things that has changed with students over the time frame in which you've been in education? Because I know it's different.
So my first reaction is the level of honesty from students. Some people, and actually not even some people, I'll speak from my own experience. When I first got into education, some of the conversations I would have at Parkway Northwest probably would have threatened me in terms of like so honest and challenging to me, and like, oh my gosh, it's taking me back. Like, I'm the teacher. What? Hello? I don't get it. But I said purposefully, like, it was a personal impact just as much as professional, because the level of honesty shows the greatness of our students if you give them the voice and the platform to show it. So in a number of instances, students would basically say, "Here's where I am." I'd say, "Well, here's where I am." Usually it was around something that didn't go perfectly. Things might even get heated this can't happen. Well, this is why it did happen, back and forth. And I remember one specific conversation, Brooklyn, keep it at that. She says to me, okay. She basically called me out, said, at a basic level, I understand where you're coming at, but I need to hear one thing. I said, okay, what? I need to hear you tell me and us, because it was a group situation, that you see us and you love us. I said, what? She said, no, I need to hear it. So I said, okay. And essentially she's saying, check yourself, step back, and like, let's really talk. And I just unloaded. I'm like, are you kidding me? Everything we're talking about is because I see the greatness in you. I love this school. I love you. Like, I see how amazing you are. I've seen you in situations stepping up for adults in this community. I've seen you have your back of your colleague, of your friends, basically. That's not a bad thing. But when it gets to a beef and it's holding you back, that's not good enough. That's why I'm fired up. And then we really started to talk, and I'll never forget that conversation. So like that level, I constantly try and tap into, like, what do you need out of this school? What do you need out of this situation? And I wouldn't have done that without the honesty of kids.
What is your role as an assistant principal, and what is one thing you would want the kids to know about your job role, or how to get into a job role like that?
Assistant superintendent? For sure. So ask what my role is and what my advice would be. My role is, that's a good question. I've been thinking a lot for about the last 6 months. Okay, well, now you're not a principal of a school, so how do you move? What's important? My role is twofold, is to make sure schools are achieving their vision and have the support to do it. They can get where they want to go. Similar to West Philadelphia High School, this is one of the most amazing schools anywhere in this country because you've got great leaders, an amazing team of teachers, students who are engaged and feel the culture and step up because of it. Like this is one amazing example. I want this at all of my schools. Okay. And so some of that's saying, hey, what do you need? How can I help you support you getting there? Did you think about this and little tweaks and that sort of thing? That's on the school level. But then the other piece is kind of challenging. And that was kind of going back to like going from teaching into administration, like the view of like, okay, well, if it's just like, what do you want to do next month or even the end of this year, that doesn't get to where's this program in 3 years as things are changing, careers are changing, opportunities in the city are different. Like what strategically, I'm going to challenge you to strategically step up and say, where do I see this school in 3 years? Where do I see this school in 5 years? Because the here and now of like loving up on students and letting them know that they are important and they have underlying greatness, that can happen day to day and needs to all day, every day. But the program changes to really set students up for success and teachers to be in programs that are linked to that success. That doesn't happen week to week and month to month. That takes years to build. And so that's my other job is like, how do I help build that and help teams see this is where we want to go and let's get there. So that's kind of my role, those two things. But then you asked, how do I get there? Honestly, let it happen. Focus on finding experiences for yourself and being open to doing it. The last 6 months has been one of the craziest 6 months of my life. I didn't fully anticipate I would be in this role. There was mentors and folks within the district that believed in me. I started to think about this type of role as on the assistant superintendent level, but I was prepared to go back to Parkway Northwest High School towards the end of July, going into August, and over a couple of weeks, it happened. And there was a lot of doubt. There was a lot of hard work. There was a lot of talking to people and colleagues that I really respected. Like, what do I do? So open yourself up to experiences. The broader base of experiences you have, that's the learning. It's not about, this is my path. And this was a mistake I made all the time when I was younger. And I still do when I'm nervous. Like, this is exactly what I need to be doing. I got to stay on this path. Well, if you just focus on this path, you don't see the left turns and the right turns. That's where you're actually going to go. So don't ignore it. So and I would argue this is just kind of where I was in life when I was younger and where you may be right now. Is we talked about this a little bit in terms of you just never know. Your talent may be connected to what you're doing right now because a lot of people and colleagues and friends in this school see your greatness in this type of setting. So don't ignore it. That might be the right turn that steers you in a direction that you didn't fully anticipate, but it's connected to who you are and what you can be.
You spoke a little bit on like 3 to 5 years. So in 3 to 5 years, like what do you see as success in the school district? Like what would you want to change? What does it look like to you?
C2L, career connected learning. So career connected learning needs to be tied to academics, not either or. I see a melding of the two where academic achievement needs to go up in terms of the amazing work that teams of teachers and school leaders are doing with professional learning communities. Like, how do we plan for our instruction and teaching, and how do we make sure students are engaged in the classroom because of it? That's literally happening. Not that you would totally see it at West Philadelphia, but this is an amazing example of where those professional learning communities impact students. So that needs to continue. That's on the academic side. But the more that students can see my academic learning is turning into a specific career pathway, externship, possibilities, college, career, like more that your academics are more in line with where you want to go, the specific step that you want to take next. That's what I want to see. Career connected learning, it can be very practical. That's C2L, career connected learning. Work Ready program is now called C2L in the city of Philadelphia. So it's about building a base of internships. And I'm sitting here in West Philadelphia High School. Your principal, Principal Travis, is so focused on this in a great way that I envision starting a specific career connected learning internship, externship, and internship program, turning into a work schedule or roster in your senior year that deepens what you're already doing as a school, whether you know it or not. The team here is at the forefront of finding very specific industries, careers, and pathways that are not either or. Like I'm either doing the CTE or I'm doing the academics. It's both. They lean into each other. So that's where I see it going, is that the blending of academics into career connected learning.
Well, as a student here at West, like I would love if I had that now. Like I feel like that would be very beneficial to the kids. Like I told you, my major is forensic science, and to take a class last year with forensic science, it really like stamped like, okay, this is what I want to do, because I was able to have a little bit of insight on it, like more than just seeing it on TV or hearing about it. I was like hands on with it, so I feel like C2L would be a good program.
Yeah, and there's amazing pockets. That's one of the most fun thing that I've gotten to do in my new role, is that I love the depth and working within my school community at Parkway, and the individual schools here are great for sure. But you get to see like the level of creativity and innovation happening across many more schools now, and it's fascinating. So one of the leading career connected learning schools in my network is Philadelphia Juvenile Justice Services Center School. They have a RISE program, RYSE, where, for instance, I was just talking to Judge Fraser Lyde, who's really interested in helping to explore pathways to help students succeed. And so, for instance, like your amazing talent in presenting, and that lends itself incredibly to a courtroom where you're advocating for students, young people, adults, and taking a very analytical approach to what's the situation, what's going on, and how do we make sure that we deal with this fairly, equitably, and in a purposeful, legal way, so that all students, including Black and brown students and young people, are being supported on an equitable basis, because currently that's not happening. There was a lot there, but point being is, back to you, your ability to present, to have present with power, grace, analytical expertise. Like there's a lot there that could come together. So why not have that experience in that courtroom during your high school? That's something that kind of gets my mind going. How do we make those connections happen effectively earlier in kids' lives? Because that's how young people find their path.
Are there, to that point, are there conversations that you have when it comes to looking at the 3 or the 5-year plan and talking about programs that you just touched on, about what that actually looks like curriculum wise? For example, we're talking about forensics and courtroom, which all touch on those analytical skills. You have to pay attention to detail. I was literally, after doing my lesson plans, I was literally watching the OJ trial on Netflix. And it was showing just the strategy for the forensics, for knowing the character of certain people that were involved. And all of that detail, I would think, would be very similar to what you would get in a forensics class, where you actually have this setting that you have to go in and assess, you know, okay, how long has that blood droplet been there? Is that a human or an animal? Piece of hair? What distance from, where's most of this coming from? I think that when some of our real life stuff is actually incorporated into the classroom that is very relevant to them now, whether they can watch it or discuss it. I think that actually brings home why it is they're learning what they're learning. Um, how's that look for? I mean, I know we do it here at West, but what's that look like for the network and overall for the district?
Yeah. So that's an example of that academic learning connected to a potential career.
Mm-hmm.
What it looks like right now is, call it like it is. There's Learn Network 12 is a more of a neighborhood based network, and we also have a strand of students that are less engaged, that are in accelerated schools or court involved through the Juvenile Justice Center or the Pennypack House School.
Right.
So what the reality is right now, some of the programs in our network are more career connected. They're under enrolled. And so the first thing is to make sure that we boost up the enrollment by making it more visible. These are amazing programs at different schools, Overbrook, Sayre, other schools that in our network.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, the Green Careers work, some of the great work of career connected learning in our network is done at Crossroads Accelerated, which is a 7th through 9th grade middle school and the high school accelerated program for kids that aren't having quite as much success in a traditional academic setting. And then PLA West, Philadelphia Learning Academy West. They have gotten really tight with Green Careers. They have a Green Career teacher. They're growing plants all the time. In their classroom with vertical towers, they're partnering with the Fox Chase Farm and going up there all the time. They're doing entrepreneurship. They literally started a farm stand in West Philly at 4300 Westminster just this fall. They run the farm stand down at 440 North Broad. So like the near term is we've got a lot more than people think. Let's maximize this. Let's get the enrollment like boosted up so that the programs are more successful. The teachers feel that the success that they deserve, and it changes perception. Like right now, that's stuff we can do in the near term. Now, longer term, what's that mean? There needs to be strategic foresight for saying, hey, how do we build these? What are the programs we want to build? Strategic organizational thinking of like, okay, how do we build off what's already here? And then kind of team-based problem solving to say, hey, we can't have in the school district of Philadelphia, I don't love it, but it's true. We can't just hire a boatload of new teachers, administrators, and everything to do everything in 5 years with unlimited resources. That won't happen.
Right.
But we do have creativity. We do have more wherewithal over year to year. And we do have more flexibility to make it happen tied to what we already have. So that's where we've got to have the leadership, confidence, creativity, and follow through to be like, let's figure this out. Unlimited resources, it's not going to be a thing. Are there more resources than we think? And if we do this right, can we tap into it? Yes. Not perfect, but I'll still say yes.
That's fair. I appreciate that. So Eagles fan.
Yes, sir.
All your life?
Yes, sir. Quick history there. My dad and I always bonded over the Eagles. The early to mid 80s were a rough patch. That was a real struggle. That's where we really going into the strike years of the early Buddy Ryan era. That's where I really forged my Eagle fandom. Buddy Ryan, Reggie White, best defense of all time, 1991. This is actually my wife's jersey, B West 2004. The punt return, Giant Stadium. I went to the last game at Chicago Field. Or Soldier Field, and in the run with Donovan, where they lost to the Rams in the NFC Championship, one of the darkest difficult days of teaching was the day after the loss to the Patriots in that first Super Bowl. Whew, that was rough. And one of the greatest nights of my life was when they won the Super Bowl. Yes, sir.
Did you go to the parade?
Actually, I had 2 kids that were sick that day. I was crying my eyes out at home. I was a hot mess. I was so happy. It was joyful.
Well, we certainly appreciate you carving out the time to do this. I know that we know that you're a phone call, text message, email away. You've proven that time and time again. And, please keep us in mind when there's additional, just thought process towards how we can even improve more based on the amount of talented students and staff that we have here, in addition to our great leader. But we sincerely appreciate your time, and let's do this again.
I would love to. And can I just have one final thought?
Absolutely.
To the West Philadelphia high school community, my biggest challenge to you is to see your greatness day in and day out. The level of support, the level of programming, the level of positive vibes in this school, the level of the facility matching the best intent of the school. This is an amazing school. Enjoy it, appreciate it. And when it's high school and you don't fully love up on one another because something is about to pop off, don't forget it. This is a pretty special place.
Absolutely. We agree. Thank you so much.